So thank you all for coming. We really appreciate your interest, not only in learning more about just awards and putting together awards in general, but also a little bit more about the Tennessee as well. What are those best practices in developing an award submittal? But then also, as I said, a little bit about the Engineering Excellence Awards in Tennessee. We've changed some things up this year for those of you who may have entered in the past. Our timing is a little different, as well as the submission process itself is going to be a little different. We're going to be completely online this year, along with, there will be some things you'll have to submit to the state office after the online submission is complete, but everything from your entry form and payment through your initial submission will all be done online. So we'll run through some of those and give you a little sneak peek of that as well. So with that being said, the learning objectives for today, so why submit for awards, a little bit about developing your award strategy, again, the demystifying the Tennessee submission and judging process, and then a few things about after you've won. So why submit for awards? Really, there are 6 areas I think that you should consider. First off is publicity for your firm or promotion. I know a lot of you already do awards and use them in that way, but it's really a chance to get out there with your clients. Why did that not go? To go with your clients and put them out there, as well as, technical difficulties, as well as promoting your firm. Also, client relations. Everybody likes to have their stuff, feel like their projects are special. Clients are no different. So anything that you can do to help build that relationship with that client, awards are a great way to do that. Employee recognition. The talent war is real, and anything, again, that you can do to help employees feel like that they're recognized for the work that they do and the value they bring to the firm, and awards are a great way to do that. Recruitment is also a possibility. You want to get your name out there. You want to show those great projects that you're working on. So use that as a tool, use those awards as an opportunity to show those recruits what you're doing and raise your position in the marketplace. In many cases, it can become a competitive differentiator. To be able to say, we've won the Grand Iris Award for the Tennessee Engineering Excellence Awards. This project set the standard and was identified and recognized as the most technically advanced or the most innovative project across the state of Tennessee. That says a lot when you're using that to differentiate yourself from your competitors. And last but not least, don't we all just love a little bit of bragging rights? So to be able to say, we won. I know when firms that I've worked with over the years, that when we submitted to EEA and other awards, it was really nice to when you won the category, or when you won the statewide, to always be able to say nana and boo-boo, we won this. We just had the conversation out in the hallway with the folks here at Brandon Caldwell. One of their projects out west in Idaho won one of the Grand Conceptor Awards for the National EEA earlier this month. So Terry was like, see what we did? Did you hear that? And I said, yeah, I did see that. So again, a little bit of bragging rights along the way. You don't just do awards for awards' sakes, though. If you do that, one, you're spending a lot of time, you're spending a lot of money, you're spending a lot of effort to do these if you do them well. So I encourage you to look at it as an opportunity to align those award opportunities with your firm strategy as well. Does the award that you want to pursue or submit support your firm's vision and goals? If you want to be known as the leading water wastewater firm in the city, why would you submit for a school project? Think about, think about how that aligns with your vision and your goals for your firm. Make sure that you have the resources appropriate to meet those goals. Some of these awards are things, and we'll talk a little later about, you have to start planning and tracking information in such a way early on in the process, early on in the project, to be able to effectively and efficiently put together an award submittal. So being able to have that information readily available. So do you have the resources, do you have the systems in place to track that information? And last but not least, does it conflict with other strategic goals? Again, the example I used earlier, if you want to be known as the leading water wastewater, then why would you do this? So does that really kind of put you in conflict or send a conflicting message to the marketplace of what you want to be known for? You can also look at it from the business side. You know, like how's the firm managed? Zweig White has a Hot Firms award that they give every year that you can submit for. So it's really more about how your firm is structured, how your firm operates. Another is finance. For those, some of you may have submitted in the S&PS Marketing Communications Awards. So again, there are marketing awards, there's also human resources. So it's a lot, you can really do it from either a project perspective or from a firm business perspective. And again, kind of think about how those align, opportunities align with what you want to accomplish along the way. So a little bit about developing your award strategy. I always like this cartoon. The campaign won't do diddly squat for a client, but it might win us an advertising award. You know, sometimes isn't that the way you feel about a project? You know, it's going to be a cool project. It might not go that well. We might lose money on it, but it's going to be a cool project. So again, I always kind of like that. So some of these tips that we're going to offer today is pulled from primary research that was conducted with 7 industry organizations, juries from each of these 7 organizations and their awards programs. So we're not just pulling this out of the air. These are comments from actual judges that were involved with the programs for each of these 7 industries. So in their case, what defines a winner? And it came down to 3 things. First off was creativity. You know, is it something that they've not seen before? Is it something that they are able to say, hey, this is unique, this is different, this is something that really kind of sets a new standard? Innovation goes hand in hand with that. Perhaps it's an existing technology, but used in a new way, or a new thought process, or a new system. So how does innovation play into that? And last but not least is relevance. You know, for these jurors, the last thing, you know, you get a lot of award entries. The last thing you want to do is have to weed through something and go, man, this is really not relevant to what we want to spend our time, to what we're here to do. So don't waste their time. So it really comes down to those 3 things. And in their eyes, looks weren't everything. You know, it came down to what was the completeness of the submittal? Were they able to find the information that they needed? Did we make it easy for them to find that information? I know a lot of times you put this stuff together and well, we've answered the questions, but is it really in a way that they can follow the story? Is it really how do you tell it? And then last but not least, the quality of photography and imagery. Now, I'll be the first to admit, iPhones are a wonderful thing, and it's made it really easy to walk out and grab a photo. However, sometimes that is not your best play as far as imagery is concerned in photography. Depends on the project, depends on what you want to do. And we'll talk a little bit more about photography along the way. But really, it came down to those 3 things from a looks perspective. How to avoid the round file. And these jurors were very clear in that these 3 things, you know, if it was a substandard photography or image quality, it's hard to see anything when it's grainy, when it doesn't really set you up as a leader either. That's one of the reasons you want to submit an award, right? Is to say, hey, we're a leader in this. But if your photography doesn't back that up. So I always encourage you to take a look at how are you doing your photography? What's the resolution? What does it say about the project? Inferior projects, and again, we all think our projects are great, and we want that for our employees and our clients. But this is what I call the brutally honest. You know, is it really a project that you should be submitting for an award? And last but not least, failure to meet the judging criteria. Just like an RFP, when you have to put together respond to that RFP, if they can't find the information, if they feel like you haven't answered the mail, awards are no different. So really, you start at the beginning. Start early collecting that information, as I said earlier. You know, one of the awards that I submitted a couple of years ago was for Building Design and Construction has a project team award. And it's really how the team on a project works together. And there are a number of steps that you have to track and a number of things that you have to track along the way. Well, if you don't start tracking that early, that information is really difficult to recreate once the project is done and you start getting ready to do that. So for that project and that team, we literally started tracking that project 2 years before when it started. And kind of, okay, if this is the award that we're looking at to submit this project for, then what do we need to know? What do we need to keep up with? So start that idea early. Certainly for something like EEA, where you know the program's coming every year, kind of keep it in the back of your mind. You know it's coming. What else is going on in your firm? What else is going on that would be a project? Maybe you've just won one. Okay, let's kind of circle that one and say, keep a running list of, okay, in 2 years when it's substantially complete. Let's look at that. Identify your best work. Again, it's one of those things of how do you really showcase your firm, and do that by showing your best work, not necessarily that inferior work. And again, be brutally honest with yourself. We're all very proud of what we do, but again, is this really something that you need to submit? So jurors speak on entry selection, the do's, submit extraordinary projects that raise the industry standard, read and understand the judging criteria. You would be surprised how many people don't do that. And then last but not least, enter competitions on a regular basis and then learn from each one. Things not to do kind of follow the same as what we talked about before. Don't submit inferior projects. You know, don't enter the wrong category. If there's some question about which category you should submit a project on or your firm for, call the sponsoring organization and ask. You know, this is kind of the project, where do you think it would best fit? Or say, you know, we can't decide between these two. Because many times, and I think EEA is no different, they say whatever category you submit is the category it's going to be judged in. Whether the jury will take a look at it and say, not sure it's a fit. I know I've judged marketing communications awards for S&PS before, and there's always one every year that the group kind of sits around and goes, man, it really doesn't belong here. It really belongs in XYZ once you really get into it and look at it. And they don't give you enough of a reason why you think you should keep it in that category, but we're bound by our submission rules that it will be judged in the category that it's entered. So again, think very carefully about what category you put it in. And then last but not least, don't throw something together at the last minute. Juries can tell. It's kind of like throwing together that RFP response at the last minute. It's always the one you leave something out. You leave the past client's name for where you've rotated through old boilerplate or something else. There's always something that goes wrong. So don't just do some planning ahead of time. Planning and strategy. Think about and make sure that you get your client's permission to submit. This goes back to building that client relation. I can't tell you how many times somebody will say, oh, well, that client will be fine with us submitting that. And you find out later, maybe they don't quite feel that way about you that they thought you did. So make sure that you've got the client's permission. You know, for most of the folks in this room, your marketers, you have to trust your engineers when they say that. That's one of the reasons for EEA. If you look at the submission forms, one of the things that we require is the signature of the client or owner authorizing permission to submit. Because that is one of those things the client should always give you that permission. Sounds simple, but you'd be surprised the number of times that doesn't happen. Involve your project team. These are the folks that know the project better than anything else. So involve them. You know, it may not be that you turn the whole thing over to them and say, right, but maybe there's some brainstorming sessions. Maybe there's some information that you need. You can at least put a rough draft together and then run through and say, okay, what about this? What about that? Get their involvement. They're the ones that are going to know the details that will be able to kind of set you apart, rather than just trying to report on something you pulled out of either a CoCentral or a database along the way. Interview the client. Again, how did it help them? What was their perspective of how the project went? Let them brag a little bit on your firm as well. And then how can you use that to your advantage? And then last but not least, think about, again, your photography and your graphics. What do you already have that you can use? What may be sitting in a project file somewhere on a server, that nobody's ever seen, or, every project you've got, for a lot of projects you have thousands of photographs or hundreds of photographs that you have to go through. Go ahead and start looking at what you've got. What might be missing? Maybe you're missing that one, what I always call the glamour shot. That even while water wastewater plant has a glamour shot, right? So, take a look at your photography or your graphics. There are many times on engineering projects, it's very difficult to have a photograph. Perhaps it's a study, perhaps it's a process. So think about what that graphic could look like. Don't just kind of pitch it together and hope they get it. Think about the challenges and solutions, the challenges that kind of drove this to start with, and the solutions that your company brought to the table. What were the outcomes and the impact? What was the impact to the community? What was the impact to the client? Were they able to get to market 3 months faster or 2 months faster so they could begin generating revenue, or in water wastewater case, processing earlier that helped keep things moving? And then what's that wow factor? That one or two things that somebody who's reading it would go, man, that's really interesting, or I can't believe that they did that, or I can't believe you took that approach, or I can't believe they got that result. And a lot of times with engineers, they want to say, but this is what we did. There's nothing special about it. I guarantee you there are days I am still amazed at what our engineers and architects and builders do, not only in this town, but across the country. So don't let them sell short that it's just, it's the norm, because it may not necessarily be. So again, on messaging, the jurors are going to speak for us. So do know your audience, respond to the judging criteria, write clearly and concisely, organize so they can easily locate information, and follow instructions. All of those seem really simple, right? If straightforward, you would think. Obviously it was not, otherwise they wouldn't have said it. Second of all, the don'ts. Don't presume that the jurors are familiar with the project. Even in the case of like Engineering Excellence Awards. I know the last two or 3 years, we've had Music City Center. Everybody thinks everybody knows about Music City Center. Well, the entry that actually won Grand Iris focused on the structural systems. That may not necessarily have been something that everybody knew about or that all the jurors would have been familiar with. Some of the intricacies, I'll get that out in a second, of the Fast Fix 8 for TDOT was another Grand Iris Award winner. Again, we heard a lot about it on the news, but some of what it took to get that to happen that fast may not necessarily have been as well known as others. So don't just presume because it's a well-known project the jurors are familiar with it. Don't ignore the instructions. Don't misrepresent the facts. That seems pretty standard, but it happens. And don't include superfluous information or use marketing boilerplate. Make it specific to that request, and don't be disorganized or sloppy. Again, that comes down to dotting your I's, crossing your T's, the simple rules that we follow with proposals many times of having someone who's not involved with the submission preparation to review it, to do a spell check, to do a grammar read. Don't rely on just the system or the software, whether it's Word or InDesign, to do it, because that will always, it does not know the difference in from and form. I guarantee you that one. So don't be disorganized or sloppy. But think about the composition. Think about the color, the attitude and emotion. How can your picture, how can your photograph, how can your image help tell your story, not just document what's there? Isn't that some place that you would really like to go hang out if you weren't familiar with it and you saw it for the first time? And again, there's any number of things. There's a part of me that wishes it went back this way and showed the rest of downtown, but then you kind of lose what the amphitheater itself looked like. And then also to show the design intent. And again, for some engineering projects, this may take some creativity on your part to think about what that photo, Aaron sent me, what that photo looks like, or what that image looks like. But I guarantee you there is something that you can do that would capture that along the way. So images that support your message. Use these little things. I can't tell you the number of times that I see images submitted for awards or proposals at that point that don't have a caption. Don't leave it up to the reviewer to try and figure out what you're trying to say with that photo. Take that 2-line caption as an opportunity to help them connect those dots. What message do you want to get them to get out of that? Consider this also extra real estate. If you're a little tight on your, say in EEA's case, it's a 1,500 word limit on the project description where you have to answer certain questions. If you find yourself kind of running out of room and there's still a couple of things you want to say, use your captions as an opportunity to make that point that fits with that photograph or that image. Use the idea of befores and afters. What was there previously and what it looks like now. Those are powerful images. And particularly now with the advent of BIM and 3D and a lot of the graphic tools that we have to do kind of like an overlay so people can see what, kind of what it was and what it is now is a powerful image. So again, think about getting creative with your images. And last but not least, the rendering versus the actual. I can't tell you the number of times, and it's gotten so much better now than it used to be. You see a rendering, and it's, for me, sometimes difficult to tell what's the rendering, what's the real. So, but use those renderings versus the actual. So again, jurors speak about visuals. I'm not saying you have to spend a ton of money on professional photography, but you can see a difference. If you have someone on staff that's really good with the camera, I know several firms do. It perhaps is not what they do on a regular basis, but it's a side hobby, it's a passion of theirs. Get them to help you. But again, try to use your professional photography as much as you can. Use those visuals to effectively reinforce your story. And then also, don't take for granted that jurors will ignore bad writing if the visuals are good. It's not just the what they see, it's what they read too. And then getting it all together. Now some of these are going to be a little different based on how you're submitting. The advent of online submissions is going to change this a little bit. But the basic premise is the same. So take time to build in a review before you submit. Have somebody, like I said, someone who's not been involved with the preparation of it to read through it. Maybe they'll pick up an idea that isn't quite fully baked. To you, it sounds fine because you've read it and written it 3,000 times. But to them, they automatically pick up, this makes no sense to me. Think about the packaging and the presentation. If it is something that you will have to physically put together, print, collect, and either ship off or deliver, what does it look like when they open it up? Can they follow it? Are the tabs, and should you tab it? Should you number the pages and reference those pages? Kind of think about what that presentation looks like. If it's uploaded, if it's something that's an online submission, when they open it up, how will it read? A lot of times now, you can either drop into a text box, and your formatting may or may not hold in those. If you upload a document, if you're able to upload a PDF, think about again what that page will look like when they open it. Your payment. Love you guys, but make sure you pay. I can't tell you the number of times that I've been involved with an awards program, whether it's EEA or others, that people go to all this time to put together a submission and then they submit it and they forget to send a check. Or they forget to give you a credit card. And it's like, now what do we do with it? So make sure you've got your payment in line, and if you're going to cut a check, give your accounting folks enough time. The worst thing for an accounting person is to run in at the last minute and go, I need a check in the next 15 minutes before, because typically that does not go well for you. So, think about that in advance. Again, the proposal idea. Think about those things you can get knocked out early. How you assemble it, build in that time to put it together. Even if it is going to be an upload, give yourself time. If everybody waits to the last minute, this is the only thing that makes me really scared for the new online system for EEA this year, is if everybody goes in on August 3rd to upload everything and the system goes wacko. So bear with us if that happens. But that's the only thing. So proofread, and then always keep a file copy. It never fails. If somebody says, what did we submit? Even if it's just an electronic file copy, always keep an exact duplicate of whatever you submitted. Because it's one of those things, what did it look like? What did we send along the way? And then jurors speak on production, just real quickly. Do get an outside critique of the submission. If it's somebody in your company that hasn't looked at it before, even better, if it's somebody outside the company that can double check it, that would be even better. And last but not least, don't count on glitzy packaging to obscure mediocrity. Kind of the same thing as a proposal. So again, think about, yes, how it's going to be read, how it's going to be received, but don't let the look overtake the content. And then you wait, and then you wait, and then you wait. And some programs are better about communicating where they are in the process. Some of them will tell you in advance you will be notified by. Some of them will say, like EEA, congratulations, show up October 26th and you'll find out at the gala. But again, it's you just get to wait once you go through that. And that can be the hardest part. So a little bit about the EEA process. Submission and judging. This year is going to be a little different than it has been in past years. ACEC Tennessee was founded in 1968. So this is going to be this is ACEC Tennessee's 50th anniversary. In line with that, we're taking this opportunity to align the typical EEA Awards Gala with an anniversary celebration for ACEC Tennessee's 50th anniversary. So mark your calendars for Friday, October 26th at Omni Hotel for an evening. We hope that you won't soon forget. That, and leading up to that, we're going to take a look back at our history and celebrate our future moving together. The goal this year for EEA, and it's a rather hefty one because the most we've ever had submitted in a year is the low 30s. Look at your firms, look at your projects, encourage your engineers to say, if you're not an engineering firm but you've worked with an engineer, that you think the project is reasonable, you think the project is viable, ask them to consider it. Help support them in that. What can you do? I pointed Jessie, like I know she's a contractor. What can you do to help encourage them to move that forward and submit that from an engineering perspective? So we have many entries that come as a team. So what is EEA? It's a valuable opportunity for firms in the state to showcase their talent and their expertise. The award ceremony is designed to recognize the disciplines and reward firms and individuals for their often unrecognized work. Last year we had about a little over 300 attendees, and probably a third of those were owners or owner types. We typically have a good representation from TDOT, a good representation from TDEC, as well as some local developers and other clients as well. So, and it is a statewide event, so it's an opportunity to celebrate together what's going on. Really is what we lovingly call the Academy Awards of the engineering industry. This year we'll also have an MC that is not going to be from the industry, yet to be retained, but we're working on it. And really what we want to do is to honor those most outstanding projects across the state. The project itself can be from anywhere in the world, as long as it's managed by a Tennessee engineering office. So again, the project can be anything that fits in our 11 categories. It can be anywhere in the world, just has to be managed by a Tennessee engineering office. Doesn't have to be a member of ACEC. It can be it's open to non-members as well. Must be substantially completed and ready for use between November 1st of 2015 and July 31st of 2018. The reason we say July 31st of 2018, even though the awards are not until October, because guess when the submittals are due? August 3rd. So, and this is actually a year longer than typical. This is where I'm going to step back and say a little bit of orientation. The committee has spent the last couple of years researching and kind of realigning not only the submission process and the submission guidelines to more closely mirror the national organization, but also the timeline of how it happens as well. What we found with many of our past state winners, by having our awards gala previously in March, they had missed the deadline for submitting for the national awards because that was actually in January before our awards gala in March. So then they had to wait until the next January to submit to national. Many times, what happens? We're done, we're moving on to something else, right? So we were seeing that we didn't have a lot of state projects that were moving forward. To help them hopefully be able to do that more efficiently and effectively, we've taken steps to align our guidelines, our state guidelines with national. Sounds simple, right? But it wasn't. But then also to align our timeline as well. So we've shifted everything. So we're on an 18-month stretch right now. Our last awards gala was March of 2017. So we will not have another awards gala until October of 2018. But moving forward, the intent is it will stay in the fall. That will allow our state winners to consider them being able to easily, because they will have already answered all the questions that you need for national, to move forward with that January deadline for national. So again, there's been a little bit of realignment. It's taken us a couple of years to get there, but we're there, yay, we're doing it. So because of the 18-month time lag, instead of the usual year, we're extended. So we've extended the substantially completed an extra few months to reflect that. So typically for the 2019, it would be about a two-year window instead of that 3-year window that you're seeing there. New for 2018, instead of having a separate small projects category like they do at national, this is one of the few places that we deviate from the national guidelines. For any of those 11 categories, you can do a large and a small. And awards will be given for both large and small projects in each category. Also, the new online submission process. It was up and running, and then we found a couple of edits that we needed to make, so it's currently offline. Give us until Monday, and it will be back. I was working on it at 4:30 this morning, so give us a little bit of time, it'll be up. But it is going to be all online this year. For those of you who have done it previously and know that you do the form, and then you send that in, and then you do the notebook, and you send it in. You'll still have to send in a USB with the information on it just as a backup for us. Plus we do have some jurors that still would like to rather get it that way than electronically, as well as the display board stays the same as well. So there are still a couple of deliverables you have to send to the ACEC Tennessee office, but everything else is online. Sneak peek of the online submission and how you get there. So if you go to the main ACEC Tennessee page and look under our awards, you select 2018 EEA and 50th Anniversary Gala from the drop-down menu. And it takes you to the screen on your far right. Then where you see the circle that says click here, that is your link into the online portal. So in there you will set up a user profile. And it's key that after you do that once, every time you go into the system, make sure that you are signed in under your email and with your password, because what that does is it collects you. It goes and says, okay, yes, this is a member firm versus a non-member firm. If you get to the end of the submission of the part 1, because there are 2 parts, if you get to the end of part 1 and it doesn't give you the member rate, that's where this becomes important. So always be sure that you use your company name and your company email, because that's what it's going to tie to recognize that member versus that non-member rate at the end. Then once you click that link, this is the first screen you see. And like I said, right now, you can't go there, but when you can, so here's where you would either set up your profile or update your profile. and then go to your submission dashboard. Once you begin a submission, you'll have a dashboard that will tell you exactly where you are in the process. You know, is part 1 still in process, or has it been submitted? You know, have you uploaded? There will be what we're calling a consent form or a downloadable PDF that you can download after you complete section 1 and still be able to get those signatures for your authorizing senior principal that the project can be submitted on behalf of your firm, and also that signature from your owner. So get those signatures and then upload that back up. And then last but not least is the part 2 submission, which is going to be due August 3rd. That is the meat of this. This is where the images go, the project descriptions, all that other good stuff. And this is where you go. So to RSVP for the gala, you go there, submit a project, it's there, and then last but not least to become a sponsor. So you can do everything off of that one. Points to remember. People care about how a project impacts their lives, why it's important, and the money or time it will save them. I don't care who you are or what you do or what your client does, it will come down to those. And many times, those items are more important than on time and on budget. Because on time and on budget, everybody says, I was on time on budget. Woo! So again, how does it impact the community? How does it impact somebody's life? So key dates you need to remember. Entry forms, part 1, and those consent forms, those signatures and fees are going to be due June 15th. That date has been changed from our initial posting. It was May 15th, and with some of our computer glitches, we've extended that to June 15th. Then the final submission, the full submission, part 2, is going to be due August 3rd. Judging will happen sometime in early to mid-September. I think that date has yet to be set, but it's close. And then all winners will be recognized at the awards gala on October 26th. You know, why should you enter? Really, it comes down to firm recognitions, a lot of things we've talked about before, client recognition and relationship building, and demonstrating achievement in a field, so that differentiator. And again, a lot of times we hear well, we're a small firm, we don't get a fair shake, how can we compete against XYZ? It's one of the reasons the state organization made the decision this year to break out each category to small and large subcategories. So again, those small firms, those small projects have an opportunity to get their fair due along the way. And if you have any additional information, feel free to reach out to Angie. Angie Cannon is chair of the Engineering Awards Committee this year. And there's her phone number and email, and I can forward you guys all this so you'll have all of it at the end of the day. So then quickly, after you've won, don't keep the good news to yourself. You know, it's one of those things that should be celebrated. So a couple of ideas, celebrate internally. Your team's worked hard to get to this point. Not just to complete the project, but then also to complete an award-winning award submittal. So celebrate internally. Also take the opportunity to celebrate with your client. How do you recognize them for the work that they've done? To thank them for allowing you to submit this on a stage, on a statewide or national stage. Have your PR or social media ready to go. You've gone to this effort. Now use that news. Put it out on your social media. Use it as a press release. EEA will always issue a press release for all the category winners. But then also, use that as your own as well. Use it in your proposals. Use it on your website. Use it any other place you can. And coordinate with the sponsor's PR effort. Again, like I said, EEA works with Barallo PR, who takes care of a lot of the PR for our winners and for our program. So they can provide you a lot of the information they have as well. I know they're happy to do it. But then also think about some of your other programs that you might submit as well. What are they doing? Where are they pushing it? How can you piggyback on that? And again, spread the word through social media, through direct mail. Whether it's a postcard, whether it's a reprint, maybe it's something that goes in your marketing materials. Again, maybe it's a poster. Maybe it becomes part of your exhibit space. Maybe it's something you can rotate in and out year to year. But it's one of those things of how do you get your biggest bang for your buck? So that's a lot of talking on my part. So questions from you guys, either about EEA or about just submitting awards in general. What else? There are some of you in here I know have done awards, so you could probably do this as well as I could. So I'm open to suggestions as well. Best practices, best ideas. I'm looking at Scott. So
sounds just like doing a proposal.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is that same thought process of doing a proposal. And many times we don't think about awards in that way, but it really is.
So people or the organization would be willing to give you some guidance if you weren't sure about
We
the
get it all the time.
Okay.
I know EEA gets it all the time. I know I've chaired MCA once before, the Marketing Communications Awards for S&PS before as well. We get it all, they got it all the time too. So most of the time, and in some cases it's going to be clear cut. Is it a renovation? Is it new construction? And sometimes it's not hard. But from the standpoint of, is it a small, where is its best play? It may be you can kind of get it down to a couple, and then where's its best play? I know one of my clients is a geotech environmental firm. And so for many of their projects, they're a sub to somebody else. And so it's like, okay, do we submit it under transportation? Do we submit it under study? Do we submit it under this? Do we submit it under that? And so it's always the question, where is its best? Let's look at the criteria and where's its best play. But no, I've yet to work with a sponsoring organization that would not be willing to have that conversation if you had some questions.
If you submit something as a team, is usually the prime consultant the one that takes the lead on the submission? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we have in years past, I'm going to speak for EEA at this point, well, MCA too, but EEA particularly, we have had years where like two firms submitted together as the prime consultant. Maybe it was a joint venture or maybe it was a team, a joint association. So they submit together and we tried to recognize those. We did reach a point one year where we said, okay, we're going to limit it to 2. We had a couple that were like, well, here's 3 and here's 4. And we're like, But again, it's that, at least we've had it with at least 2 that have said, okay, we're going to do this together. But in like your case, you could certainly, support that engineering firm in that effort as part of the project team. And we encourage those engineers to include you guys with, any of their team members at the awards gala or with any of the promotion that comes out of it as well. Other questions? I'm going to get you to that draft party early.
Well, it won't even start till 6.
Got plenty of time to get that down. Any other questions? Again, give us till Monday. The online submission should be back up and running at that point. The call for entries and instructions to submit are posted at this point. If you can't get to those and you want to go ahead and get them, Judy Logue at ACEC Tennessee's office can get you those in the meantime. And like I said, just bear with us. We figured out earlier this week there were a couple of little snags in the system, and it was like, okay, let's get this fixed before everybody starts submitting. So if you've already started a submission, we'll take care of it. But if you haven't started yet, like I said, just give us till Monday, and it should be back up and running. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate it so much. Water and cookies, get something on the way out, pick up something for the road. Thank y'all for coming. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Judy or reach out to Angie. And if you didn't sign in when you came in, if you will, sign in on the sign-in sheet before you leave. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.